This episode of In the Trenches is brought to you by Wholesale Final Expense Leads. If you are a life insurance agent and you need people to see and you want to raise your activity level, go to wholesalefinalexpenseleads.com and place your order today. Leads are available 24/7. Hey, Chase here at Cole McCoy coming to you with another episode of In the Trenches. This is episode number 43.
What's up?
There it is. We're excited this week. We've got a special guest with us for all you insurance social media nerds like us. We've got a special guest. We get the pleasure of working with him each and every day. He is an agency owner, agency builder, top producer extraordinaire. We have Eddie Milholland on with us today. Eddie, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Just, waiting to get this thing rolling and pretty excited to do a video with you guys. So, I'm ready to go.
We're going to try and keep it as non-awkward as possible because though we all interact and work with each other, it's like, oh, I'm on a podcast, so I have to act this. We're going to keep it a little casual and comfortable as possible. But we have a group that we're all participating in, the EFES Nation group, where it's our people that we work with who are able to jump in there. Someday we may open that up to everybody. But inside of that group, you, Cole, myself, everybody here internally, we've been having communication about, hey, what do you guys want to hear about? What do you want us to talk about? And that conversation came up and kind of started to revolve mainly around, Ben Bowman was the one that threw it out there, which was treating this as a business, as a career, and not some hobby, not some just little thing aside. So with that being said, we're going to get to that. But we want to know about Eddie Milholland. So for those that don't know you, maybe they've seen you post, like some stuff, share some great content on social media. Let's start off with you, Eddie. When did you get into the business and how did you get into the business?
Yeah, well, it was about 3 years ago that I started doing final expense. Before that, I worked at State Farm for about 2 years. And I had a guy, I kept trying to pitch life insurance to my PNC clients that were coming in. They said, well, no, I've already got something for this person. And I was like, this guy's selling a lot of life insurance, and I don't like that. So I found his number. I gave him a ring, and he was actually with EFES. And I said, well, what's the deal here? I mean, how much money do you make selling these policies? He said, you can make anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 a week. $3,000 like is a minimum. It's what you want to shoot for. I was like, no, that can't be right. And so everybody else around me, they're like, no, that's a scam. There's no way anyone can make that much money in a week. But I was like, you know what? I got 3 kids. It's just me working. We're budgeting. I'm just barely scraping by no matter what I do. What's the point? I can always get this job again. So I'm going to take a risk, kind of a little bit saved back. So I said, okay, let's do it. I put some direct mail out. And, I'd always loved sales, influence, all that kind of stuff. Before that, I had studied, this is corny, and, it's kind of hokey sounding, but I did clinical hypnosis for a little bit, and I helped quite a few people lose weight and stop smoking and along those lines. So I'd always loved the psychology behind influencing others and, the language you use. So anyways, I jumped into it, and the first year was pretty rough, but I made so much more money than I had made working full time selling at State Farm. And I was like, man, this is where it's at. So since then, I've just sharpened my skills and learned from great guys like you guys and everybody at EFES, and, and grown every single year, and I'm loving it. I can't see myself doing anything else.
Awesome, man. I know, Eddie, you've had, as all of us have, we have stories and ups and downs, and we experienced the roller coaster of our businesses, right? I'd love to hear, maybe share some things that throughout your last 3 years, specifically with EFES and the final expense thing, maybe is there anything that sticks out to you as an aha moment or like a roller coaster that you had overcome, or something that seemed like the cards were stacked against you? Was there anything specifically that you can share as to how you got to where you are? Because I get to the pleasure of knowing your story a little bit, but I'd love for you to share some of that with us, because I think so many people can learn from just how you were able to overcome some obstacles as well. And so I'd love to hear that side too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a turning point for me, I was having a blitz week in Tennessee, and it was still my first year, so I'd driven, I think it was 7 or 8 hours away. And I had a lady who was actually a good friend of mine. I'll call her a lady, but she was setting appointments for me, and somehow I was just not having a good time. I used the money that I had. I was still pretty new at this, and I had a few chargebacks and all that fun stuff you have in the first year. But I was not having luck. So the first 2 days I was down there, I wrote a few small policies, but it seems like they were guaranteed issue or they were direct express. I was like, man, I'm just not closing as many as I need to because I was booking, 8, 10 appointments a day and door knocking whenever I wasn't at appointments. So I think that one of the turning points for me was whenever I went back to the hotel that I was staying at and I looked at my presentation and I said, this seems to be word for word. And, I need to know exactly what I'm going to say in each home. And I need to include more pain points. So it seemed like I was going through the presentation, but I wasn't generating enough pain for the person to be like, okay, yeah, this has to be done today. So I added a few questions. And then after I had my presentation fully typed out on the back of my leads, I typed this other questionnaire type form out. And I wish I had a lead around here. I do at the other table, but and it was just basically talking points. It had the word like Edward, thank you, reasons, 2 forms, and it kept me on track. So I remember calling my upline at the time and I was like, man, nothing's going right. And I think I even called Chase at some point. I'm pretty sure. And, what they said, they were like, basically just run it consistently, do it like a robot. Don't get thrown off. So I said, that's what I'm going to do. So I started just to go through my presentation the exact same way every single time. And having that form in front of me was really nice because if they started talking about some random thing of their aunt or their dog or whatever it might be, I could say, okay, this is where I left off. And I could go right back into it. So, well, Mary, were you thinking more about a burial, a cremation, or maybe the Viking longship style with the flaming arrow? So I knew exactly where I was, and I knew how to get back to that point. So I could close the sale consistently. And that really changed a lot for me whenever I started doing that. And then, a few months later, I was doing a lot better. I knew that if I went out in the field, like I was going to sell some policies. But one thing that really helped me was knowing my numbers. So I would take a little black book. It's actually not here, but just one of these wasn't like this one, but it's a smaller one that fits in your pocket. And I would write down the night before, I'd write down, these are the people that I'm going to see, whether it was appointment set or door knocks. And on the other side, I would have, number of door knocks, number of appointments, number of presentations, number of, not interested, sales. And then I'll look at my numbers each and every day, how much I made per door knock, how much I made per appointment, how much I made per hour. And I was like, okay, well, this is pretty good. And I knew that my closing rate was around 50%. So I knew if I set 8 appointments, I'd sit down with about 6 people and I closed probably about 3 sales. So having that took out that, instability of not knowing, if you're going to make money that day or not. I knew that if I ran my presentations the exact same way and I tracked my numbers to see what I was truly making and how well I was doing, things would work out. So I'd do an end of the week review. I'd put it all on a big whiteboard. How many hours did I work in the field? How many presentations did I give? What was my closing rate? What did I make per hour? All that stuff. And that also helped me because when you're door knocking, and agents that have been doing this know, it's a lot harder to stay focused. So, you get out there and you knock on a few doors and you stop to grab a bite to eat. And if you're like me, you stop at a bookstore and you're like, hey, I deserve a book. I made a sale. And then by the time you're out in the field, you've really not worked that many hours. So I would keep track of my hours like I was working at a real job. And that helped me to know, well, yeah, I might not have made the sales that I was planning on making today, but it's because I only worked 6 hours. I wasn't actually in front of people as much as I needed to be. So that helped me a lot to make it, to run this more like a business and take out that, uncertainty of it all.
We're going to go into great detail here shortly about, kind of running it like a business, but you just brought something up that I know is a big point to you as we were doing prep, which is time management. And I immediately thought of Cole when you mentioned you can go knock on a few doors, grab a bite to eat, go to a bookstore. Time flies when you're out there. When you're working, regardless of what you do, if you're working and you're in it, time will go by much quicker compared to if you're just piddling. And
right.
So if you're having fun or if you're just grinding and you're working, time will fly. And I've remembered calling Cole numerous times and being like, dude, I just talked to you like it seems like 10 minutes ago and it was like 2 hours ago. I just got done knocking on a few doors. And like we would share those commiserating stories throughout like a weekend or something. And it's just true. It brings a point home of time will fly if you're out there grinding. So take every opportunity. Don't waste that lunch if you can. I know some of you guys bring sack lunches. Chris Smith talks about that sack lunch. But time management is something that you brought up as that, an item that's very, very important to you. I know Cole, for example. Cole knows he's driving hours away. Unlike most people, he's going to drive hours away to go work, staying in a hotel by choice. And he's not going to waste any time when he's out there. He's ready to get the job done, get the task handled. Share with us why that time management is so important to you, and maybe an experience or two where you've failed at it and you've exceeded at it.
Cole or me?
Oh, I'm sorry, you. Go ahead, Eddie.
Oh, that's okay. I was like, no, definitely. I mean, the time management is huge. And the hardest part is that you can set a schedule for yourself, but unless you're on top of it, like you're your own employee, it's harder to maintain. So you have to hold yourself accountable. I think the biggest things, are prioritizing your day. It might feel like you're doing the right activities, but you really need to take an overall look at what you're doing in a day. And a good way to do that is to make a list, So let's say you're an agent out in the field, and a few of the things that you want to make sure that you're getting done are obviously running appointments, setting appointments, updating your CRM if you keep one of those, which I highly recommend. Following up with people, who have either fallen off the books or you can sell, but you need to go back. Sending out letters for increases. Key things that you need to make sure, like what are the most impactful things that you can do in a day that are going to increase your bottom line and put money in your bank account. So when you put those down, make a list. How much time are you going to devote to each one? Are you going to spend 8 hours a day door knocking, or how much time are you planning on setting appointments? And then put that on your calendar. Put that on the next day's schedule. You have to plan your days the night before. You cannot wake up in the morning and then be like, okay, what do I need to get done today? And that was a huge thing for me to learn. I need to have my day planned out so that I know whenever I get up the next morning, I'm going to be here and I'm going to be doing this. And if this falls through, if Mary's not at her house, I'm getting knocking on these two people's doors. So I had 2 agents in here last night, and we had about 70 leads in a county that had not been worked. And, I was like, well, man, you guys need to get out there. Let's set you up some appointments. And one of the agents did really well. She set up a ton of appointments, and the other one was new to setting appointments. But for him, I was like, you need to plan out your day. If you got your first appointment at 9 o'clock, who are you going to door knock after that? Put at least 2 people at door knocking appointments there, and then have your route optimized previously, and then put your leads in order so that you're not out there getting distracted. You're not pulled off on the side of the road, putting your leads into a route planner and then thinking, oh, I need to do this one next. You're not wasting time. So, every single day doing it like that and holding yourself accountable is going to increase your productivity tremendously. If you do that consistently, and it takes a lot of stubborn discipline. You have to be hard on yourself sometimes. You have to say, did I work as well as I could today? Did I actually put in the hours? Are these hours that I was out there working hours, or are these piddling hours? Give you another example. My wife and her aunt, who had actually gotten licensed, she was really new, and they were going out there, and she calls me, and they got up there around 10 o'clock to their destination. They stopped and they got breakfast, and then they door knocked for a few hours, and they stopped and they got lunch. And then around 3 o'clock, they said, man, nobody's answering the doors. And I was like, well, guys, how many hours have you been out there? We've been out here all day. It's like, not if you look at, 10 to 11, you're eating breakfast. 11 to 12, you door knocked. 12 to 1, you took lunch. And, between 1 and 2, you did some door knocking. And so you've only been out there actually working a few hours. So you have to look at it that way. So you're not deceiving yourself into thinking that you just busted your butt all day. Nobody's answering the doors. So keeping up with your activity and your actual time in the field, super important. Also, setting appointments to maximize your time. If you're a door knocker, there are some people out there that are just pros at door knocking. Me personally, I wasn't that great at it. I can take a stack of leads and I can set up a ton of appointments, and that's really easy for me. People, they like me on the phone for some reason. But, whenever I went from door knocking to appointment setting, and I started off on Sunday night at 5:30, 6 o'clock, and I set up Monday and Tuesday, I started my week off a lot stronger. And if you can do that, you can maximize, you can make yourself a lot more efficient out there in the field. And then you can door knock the rest of the week. But you started off a lot stronger rather than going out there and door knocking, running between houses and hoping to get some presentations in. You're going to sit down with some people that day. So that's what I would have on that.
Yeah, I think that's massive, man. The appointment factor. I mean, yes, there are wonderful people in this business that pretty much just door knock and they're beasts at it. However, if we're talking about running this like a business and we're talking about a majority of agents, if you have places that you're committed to being, you have to go run that appointment. You tell them you're going to be there. It's set at 1 o'clock. You have it in your schedule. It kind of forces you to go to work. I think where a lot of agents fall off the wagon, where you're telling the story about going to breakfast and then going to lunch, and then you had a full day and worked 3 hours, right? That's so easy to do, but in our minds, like, no, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to work hard, I'm going to make it happen. And I think where it's hard for agents is when the week isn't going their way and they have to hit that extra door. They have to, what happens at the end of the week when your appointments were busts and you might have had one deal or you haven't had any sales, and now you're looking at Thursday, Friday, Saturday, like, I got to grind to make this work. That's where the business gets hard and most people quit. That's, I think, where we find out, okay, is this a business or is this a hobby? And if it's a business, the people that have that mentality, yeah, it's going to suck. It's not going to be fun. The days are probably, if I'm door knocking a bunch and not getting in houses, now hopefully if you're going and seeing people, you'll get in front of them, but we're not guaranteed that. So I love what you're talking about, Eddie, setting up a system, setting up a schedule, even putting the door knocks as part of the schedule, being efficient with your time, keeping everything in order. It takes all the emotion out of it. You said something about becoming a robot, and I don't want people to mishear that. It's not like you're becoming insensitive, and because I know you, and someone who may be super critical might think, well, what if the client needs this, or you're not listening, or you're not, being empathetic, and like that's not what you're saying at all. It's take the emotion out of it, so that way you're tricking yourself. I have to go do this. I put it in my schedule. And the term that I've heard people use is be a slave to that schedule, in a good way. I'm working until 6 or 7 or whatever it is. And if you're a person that needs that type of structure, and a lot of us do, I think that's a great way to do it. And especially when it sucks. And like, how many times we all talk about this where we had a horrible week. And I can think of one of the worst weeks I ever had. And then it was Thursday at 5, and between 5 and 9 o'clock, I wrote $8,000 in 2 houses. Like, we just never know. But had I given up and gone home, who knows what would happen with those people? And so it's like constantly having to keep motivated. But then you as a leader, you have the experience and the benefit of experience where you're getting your butt kicked, and now you have to go out and just figure it out. If you're a new agent listening to this thing, you're like, yeah, all I'm really experiencing is getting your butt kicked. So I want people to understand the other side of this too. Like, Eddie, if somebody comes and works with you, I would bet every dollar that I have that you're going to help them set appointments. You're going to make sure those first 3 or 4 days they're going out in the field. They're, they're calling you from the house. You're helping them close deals. Heck, you might even show up there and help them write the deal. But it's a lot easier to help those people that are willing to help themselves and go to work. Am I right?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I mean, you can hold someone's hand and help them to a certain extent, and at some point in time, they've got to take the initiative and the responsibility for their business. And you can't force somebody to work. You can't, what's that saying? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. You can show them the system. You can get them the leads. You can give them every word that they need to say. But if they aren't willing to go out there and get rejected, they won't make it in this business, because it is a numbers game. I love what Ben Bowman says. You have to fail 75% of the time in order to be successful at this business. And that's so true. I mean, you have to get those no's, and you don't let them affect you. That's the biggest thing. It's hard whenever you're new or you're having a rough week to hear like, oh no, we're going to think about it. We're going to think about it. We're going to think about it. And having, side note, you need a good way to handle that objection, especially. But it's hard whenever you're not making sales and you need the money, because clients can feel that. They can sense it. They can tell whenever you're uncertain. They can tell whenever you need to make a sale. It's commission breath or whatever they call it. And that's a real thing. For instance, one of my agent that was having trouble setting appointments, he was saying all the right words, but there was some small amount of nervousness, and they could pick up on that. And as opposed to the other one who had already set an appointment. So it's always easier to make a sale after you make a sale. Once you get on a roll, and that's the thing, you need to keep it consistent. You don't need to, go have a big day, make several sales, and then be like, all right, I'm going to rest for a few days, because then your mind's out of it. You're not in that programmed, mentality of, okay, it's this much activity will produce this much result, and this is the goal. It's good to rest whenever you've done the work and you've met your goal, but it's also good to have a consistent schedule. That's the most important thing, because if you do that 5 days a week, there's an ungodly amount of money that you can make in this business if you're working a real 40-hour week in it. It's just, and you can help a lot of people. So, and yeah, what you were saying about being a robot, whenever I say that, I mean more in terms of your presentation. So, for instance, and I'm sure you've experienced it, like we all have. You get into a house, they're like, "Oh no, we've got something. We're not interested. That's taken care of." Whatever the objection might be, and you stop going through your presentation at a certain point. You get discouraged. They seem like they're not a prospect, or maybe you think they don't have the money. So rather than doing that, which was throwing me off, I'd give up too early. I just keep going through my presentation and see what they answered on my questions, and if they were qualified, if they let me know it was important to them, that was in need, it was there, and it would be a big financial hardship on their children if they didn't have it. Then I'd make the sale. One agent I was training, and she's like, "Man, I did not think we were going to make that sale, but you kept going through the presentation, and we walked out with the sale." So you have to be consistent, and you have to stay on track, and you have to be in control of the situation and the encounter, and not let your emotions sway you into giving it up too early, or have a predetermined notion of how much they can afford or they can't afford. So do the same exact thing every single time, and you will eventually get consistent results.
Yeah. I want to touch on something that both of you just brought up that I think is very powerful. Also, Cole, when you talk about and you and Eddie mentioned like having bad days, as you go through those bad days and you try and just continue to drudge forward, persevere. Same thing when you're on fire. If you're absolutely killing it right now, those days that you decide to turn and go home, those days can hurt you and adversely affect your overall grand scheme of things and your overall plan, because this business is ebbs and flows, as we've talked about. You're going to have great days. You're going to have bad days. But that day that you continue to drudge forward and push and hit, you may break a record and you don't even know it. But if you say, well, I've hit 4,000, I've hit 5,000 a day, I've had a great day, I'm going home, that could have been an $8,000, $10,000 day, like you said. I think that's powerful for those that are out there watching. Just continue to go through, like Eddie was talking about, as Cole's mentioned many times before. Stick to the plan. If your hours of operation or your schedule permits this right here, we're working this right here. We're not going to do this. Good, bad, or indifferent. And Eddie, I want to ask you, going back to something Cole hinted at a moment ago, as we learn a little bit more about you, I want to go back to your background. You were kind of getting into it, so I'm going to kind of try and pry this out of you. Your turning point in the business. What was your turning point? I know you said I started to get more comfortable. I knew that when I went out, I started making some sales. What was that turning point where you knew you had that elite level ability where you can go out and you can really make a great living in this business? What was it, that light bulb that clicked and came on for you?
It was really that week, and then I had like a $10,000 week that week. It was my first $10,000 week, and I was like, wow, okay, so it's just the activity level and the amount of time that I'm in the field, the amount of presentations that I'm giving, and then from there, as long as you stay consistent, you don't go for a month without writing business, which I think is where a lot of agents are at right now from this coronavirus stuff. They've sat at home, they've gotten a little rusty. It's a little harder to get out there and start making sales. But from there, it was easy. Once you know what you're going to say in every situation, and you know that you have X amount of presentations, you're going to get X amount of sales, it's not hard. And then it's just a matter of doing it, consistently. That was a big turning point for me. It took away all the uncertainty of, all right, is this going to work out? Am I going to get a ton of chargebacks? Am I going to be able to pay my bills, meet my goals with this? And then it was like, I know that I can do this. I know that I can go out there and make this amount of money as long as I'm seeing this many people. So you need to break it down, and the numbers, they're so important. And I can't stress keeping track of your numbers enough for that reason.
It's really neat seeing you guys. I'm going to pinpoint you two, not just because we're on here together, but as agency builders, as leaders of men and women. I give you a tremendous amount of kudos, because on a weekly basis, Cole, you're driving hours away to go work your territory. Why? Because you want to stay focused. You want to make sure that when you're out there, you're grinding, you're doing your thing. Eddie, same thing for you. Even though you're both not full-time in the field anymore because you have so many agents you have to work with and train, the funny part, and I think it's something that's admirable, it's not funny, you literally, and you did this a couple weeks ago, Eddie, and Cole, you do it on a regular basis. You guys can literally be out of the field for 3 weeks, 2 weeks, a month. You'll take a set of leads, and then we'll see you dinging. Hey, here's $3,400 today. You know, you were on the call calling out numbers last week, Eddie. I think that's really cool about you guys. It's the ability. Some say, you know, I work with somebody who's done it before. These guys have done it before. And as we do some blitzes around the United States, I always found that really cool about you two, particularly, and a lot of the other leadership that we have.
Here's the cool thing about
we'll show you how to do it.
The cool thing about that too, Chase, is, you know, we have it set up where if our agent's in a house, and all I tell my agents in the beginning, I was like, I'll set appointments, just go get in front of people, start talking to them, and call me. And the reason we can go out every 3 or 4 weeks and still write apps is because we're writing apps every day.
Yeah, you really are.
With the agent, you know, we're helping the agents close the deal. Not to brag and say that they're not working hard or whatever, but that's the promises that we keep. You know, part of that helps us stay sharp, but like that just goes to show that, you know, if you have someone that's treating this thing like a business, they go get in front of somebody and just call me. Like that's all you got to do. I'll help you make money, you know, and that's the whole mindset that we want to have. Like we want to have all the tools and the things available for agents to be successful, but we also have to put the ball in their court too and say, hey, if you're willing to go to work and actually work, the sky's the limit. And I know, Eddie, you can speak to that too. I thought that was a good point to make, because it's like, yeah, we go and we write apps every 3 or 4 weeks in person, but we're doing it every day. And that's just saying, hey, you know, if we're asking you to run this thing like a business, you can bet your bottom dollar that we're doing the same thing too. And
I see it when you guys come to town, dude. Like when you were here, last week? You know, Cole steps out of a meeting. It seems like every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes, he's got one of his guys or gals calling, and you were helping lock down deals, Eddie, when you were in town as well. That's powerful, man. That's big.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you have to do, especially for new agents. They need mentorship. I think that's one thing that's really missing from this industry is people, you know, they'll give a contract out and they'll give them some leads and they'll say, go to work. And, you know, that works for some of them. If they're people like, you know, like my first upline was not the best. It was not the best. And, you know, he didn't know how to sell. And so I sought that information out. Yeah. So, but, you know, I taught myself that some agents, they need someone to just thoroughly train them and to help them set appointments and to make sure that they're accountable. And they require a little bit more managing. But once they get it, once it clicks for them and they're like, oh, I can do this, then they're off. You know, then they're just making money every day and they're calling you, hey, just wrote a $2,500. And, you know, my buddy Jake, he's only 22. He's going to college for neuroscience. And he was really nervous about this whole thing. And I was like, buddy, you're working 40 hours a week and you're not going to be able to live off what you're making. Work a few days a week doing this. So he got his license, and, you know, the first day he went out, he made 2 sales. He rode with me for a little bit, and he's like, wow, this is a lot easier than I thought. I was like, yeah, you just got to put the activity in. And, you know, that's what they're out there doing right now. And, you know, I think a lot of us have the ability to be big producers. We just need help to figure out the system and the words and to feel confident. Once you feel confident, you know, then it's all easy from there. You know you can pick up a phone and you can close a deal. You know you can go to a house and Miss Mary is going to, you know, to trust you because she can see that you're a professional and she knows you're an authority and she knows that you care about her and she knows that you're going to take care of her. And, you know, and that comes with time. Obviously, it's not going to be right off the bat, but with perseverance and the activity, all that will come and it'll just be so much easier once you get to that place where you know that you're going to make this amount and you can take care of a lot of people and your family at the same time. It's definitely a journey, though.
There's definitely a maturation process and a learning curve that has to happen. I want to know this selfishly because I know Cole, as we were joking leading up to this and doing some prep work, we wanted to make this episode about you. So much wisdom to share, and I was giving Cole a hard time about it jokingly, but he's on point. We wanted to be able to pick your brain, different perspective. We have the pleasure and luxury of getting to interview awesome people like yourself. Winning formula is something I wanted to ask you. Cole and I have talked about this offline. We've talked about it in the Builder Chat. Winning formula for you when you're teaching a new agent. You don't have to go into all of the details, but from a high level, what is the winning formula for you that you're going to share with an agent that's going to help them be successful? What do they need to have?
Well, they need to be coachable. You know, they need to be active and they need to buy leads or get leads of some nature. And as long as they're those three things and listening to what you're saying, there's no way for them to fail. I mean, as long as they're following what you're saying and they're studying and they're disciplined in that, and they're getting out in the field. I mean, it's really not a hard sale. It's really not that difficult. It's a very simple product. It's a pretty simple sales process. But yeah, I mean, the biggest things or those three components have to exist for an agent to make it in this business, I believe. But other than that, just having a good presentation and having good appointment setting skills, work on those things. Repetition. When I was driving down the road and I was getting all my presentations and my scripts together, and I think having a script is important. For me, it is. For some people, it's just completely natural and they can say whatever and it works for them. And I admire those people. But for me, knowing exactly what I'm going to say helps. So, and then repeating those processes and where it's really smooth. Having a script is one thing, but it's useless without the right tonality, without the right pauses and the right body language. And that's something you have to continually invest in yourself as a salesperson. You are helping someone to make a good decision for their life, and you're influencing them in a positive way. But people are so distrustful these days, and they have to know that you are legit. You're not Joe that's just going to get in their bank account and take out money. So to do that, for these people that are giving you their social security number, especially with a phone, telesales is something entirely different. It's a different species altogether. And I learned quickly that people are so much more distrustful of the phone, and I don't blame them. You're asking for their social security number, their driver's license, their address, their mom's maiden name, their banking info. So you have to really develop yourself and continually grow in order to be able to do this at a high level. And it's a never-ending learning process. So buying books, watching videos, constantly growing as a person and a salesperson is super important. But if you have those first three components and you're just investing in yourself and you're not giving up, you have to persevere through the hard times. But if you do, there's such a big payoff. It's such a good life to be able to take off time with your family, be able to provide for your kids in a way that you couldn't at most other jobs in America. There's a real opportunity here that people are missing. And I tell people about it and they think it's a scam or it's something that's not real, but but it's a really unique opportunity, and we can help people protect their families and make a really good living for ourselves doing it. So I think it's a worthwhile endeavor for sure.
Cole, before we close this bad boy out, anything you want to touch on that we did not get a chance to ask Eddie Money today?
No, man, Eddie, I would love to get you to give us your presentation sometime. So we'll
definitely
stay tuned for that. If you guys are listening, look, we're gonna get Eddie to do his presentation to show us his magic. So, I would say if you are in the Arkansas, Tennessee, Louisiana, Texas, Oklahoma area, Missouri, I could not think of a better guy for you to work with. If you need a system, if you need help figuring stuff out, please call Eddie Money. He will help you. This is sincerely one of the sweetest but hardest working dudes that I get the pleasure to know in this business. And he'll tell you like it is, but he'll also love on you. And at the end of the day, help you make more money than you're currently making. Or, if you're new in the business, if you need a mentor, I couldn't think of a better person. So we love you, Ed, man. We appreciate you. Thanks for jumping on with us.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. It's been awesome.
We're definitely going to have to do it again, Eddie. We're going to jump in, like Cole said, to the presentation side of things, a lot of other fun stuff. And for the guys out there and gals out there watching right now, go ahead and bank on seeing Eddie joining us a little bit more frequently. We're excited about that. We've already got the verbal commitment. We have to get him to sign the contract. Just kidding. But for all of you out there watching, if you ever have any questions, you want to reach out, maybe you're lacking a mentor, maybe you want to have a one-on-one session with somebody who's doing it at a high level, like Cole mentioned, we'd love to get that conversation started. And you can also subscribe to the channel. If you were forwarded this video or found it somewhere on social media, go to YouTube, find us, look us up, EFES Nation, and hit that subscribe button. Let's keep you plugged in. Eddie Money, we'll do it again soon.
Appreciate you guys. Take care.